Channel 2, New York.
You're watching Game Show Network. All three of these ladies claim that they use soap operas for psychological therapy. Only one of them really does. The other two are imposters and will try to fool the panel on To Tell the Truth. Gene Rayburn. Peggy Cass. Nipsey Russell. And Kitty Carlisle. And now from New York City, here's our host, Bill Cullen.
Hi, thank you all. Thank you kindly. Thank you. Hello there.
Yes, good.
It's not your fault. Thank you, friends, and welcome to Tell the Truth. It is me sitting in here for Gary Moore, and it is a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to be trying to hold up the... Speaking of holding things up, let's say hello to our panel. Here from Match Game, fill in whatever year it happens to be in your particular town at this time, Gene Rayburn.
I love your blank. Thank you, Bill.
Very good. Then, of course, next in line is a regular member of our panel, Peggy Cass, who always does a tremendous job. Ex-cheerleader from Boston, I believe. Now then, a fellow who is sitting in for really the most valuable member of the panel of all, whose name shall not be nameless.
The spring has sprung, the fall has fell, and this winter it has been colder than usual.
And, of course, our anchor man. Good dig that, crazy anchor man, Kitty Carlisle. Welcome, panel. Happy to have you all here. Okay. Now, Bill Wendell just said our first guest is an occupational therapist. He's telling the absolute truth. May we meet her right now, please?
Number one, what is your name, please?
My name is Janet Falk Kessler.
Number two.
My name is Janet Falk Kessler.
Number three.
My name is Janet Falk Kessler.
So, panel, as usual, it's up to you to pick out the real Janet Falk Kessler, and here is her therapeutic analysis. I, Janet Falk Kessler, am an occupational therapist. Together with Catherine Froschauer, we've initiated a most unusual program. We use television soap operas for therapy. Our initial goals were to improve our clients' attention span and to improve self-awareness through a group activity. We've found, however, that when clients discuss the fictitious crisis they've just viewed, they are better equipped to understand their own problems. For example, as a result of watching a soap opera on child abuse, one of our clients with a history of child abuse was able to talk about it openly for the very first time. Our concept seems to be making quite an impact. Indeed, when the TV set couldn't be used for a while, our clients made up their own soap opera. Signed, Janet Falk Kessler. And we'll be returning for questions from our panel after our sponsors lead you down their own particular primrose path.
Ultra 2.
So then, panel, remember these three ladies all claim to be Janet Falk Kessler, who uses television soap operas as a means of group therapy. We'll start our round of questioning by calling on the redoubtable, whatever that means, Nipsey Russell.
I'm redoubtable.
Okay.
Number two, what is the generic disease from which your patients are suffering?
Well, most of them have psychological problems.
I see. Number one, how are these soap operas selected? Do you just use whatever is on the air at the moment, or do you tape them and use special ones for special groups?
But we watch the same soap opera each time, but it's whatever fits into our schedule.
I see. Number three, when you speak of self-awareness, what is that? Is not one always aware of oneself?
No, oftentimes people aren't aware of what is causing their difficulties in life. Oftentimes they don't understand how people may be perceiving them.
I see. Then sticking with number two, is it really a self-awareness or an identification and an analysis of one's problems?
Well, whatever is going to help somebody function in their day-to-day life is what we're worried about.
When you say...
There you go. I know what my problem is, and I'm not telling. Kitty Carlisle, you may question anyone but me.
Number one, where do you do this, and who are your patients?
Okay, I work at a day center program, part of the Washington Heights Community Service. And we treat people who are from the Washington Heights area.
And number two, are these all adults?
Yes, they are.
Number three, soap operas today deal with subjects that were only before found on the analyst's couch. In other words, well, it's true. You find in your soap operas things like rape, incest, child abuse.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, those things.
You all are terrible, really.
I haven't said a word.
Good for you. Yes.
Yeah, those things do occur, and they act as a stimulus to our clients. And in turn, it helps them get out their own particular problems, and we found it very therapeutic for them.
And number two, do you take... Oh, thank you.
Rape, incest, and thievery, they are the agency that handles the account, I guess. Gene Rayburn, anything you want to know?
Yes, there are a number of things I want to know. Number two, if you have a group, as indicated here, and you're involved with child abuse, and you tune in the soap opera, it has nothing to do with child abuse. How do you implement this? I mean, do you know in advance what the subject matter of the soap opera will be?
No, we don't need to, because watching the problems will stimulate the people to talk about what's bothering them anyway.
Number one, how long has this program been carried on?
We've been running the group for a little over 2 years.
And number three, has anyone graduated from the group?
Yeah, people have left the group. In fact, in the 2 years, we've seen anywhere from 80 to 100 individuals.
And number three, how about the rate of recidivism?
It hasn't really occurred yet because people stay in the group until they feel really competent enough to deal with their daily life. We try to make them functional. We don't speak of a cure per se.
And number two...
Okay, now to wrap it up and give it some direction here, we hope Becky Cass.
Thank you. Number two, it seems to me you and the 80 patients must have to watch an awful lot of soap operas. I mean, what do? Just tune in for the afternoon and then talk later?
No, we use one soap opera a day for half an hour. It's an hour session, and we use the soap opera for the first half, and then for the second half, we talk.
Thank you. Now, number three, do you yourself get kind of hooked on the soap opera after a while? I mean, you know, you really want to see what happens to Kathy and Jack and their problems? God knows what problems.
It does happen. Sometimes I do look forward to it, and my patients do also. And sometimes they want to continue watching, like, the follow-ups.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Number one, from what I see of the soap operas, your patients will be very well prepared to stand trial. It seems to be somebody's always on trial in those soap operas. Does that come in handy?
Yes, it does. There are very often some of our clients have been involved in law cases.
You know, I never knew Washington Heights was such a steamy place.
Anyway, whatever about Washington Heights, time is up and it's time for our panel to do their voting. So take your cards and your little pens there and do your voting panel either for number one, number two, or number three. Now, of course, we pay $50 for every incorrect vote, and if the whole panel is full, the group over there splits up $500 amongst themselves. Okay, voting done. Nipsey, you started, so vote first.
Yeah, I've developed the technique of putting in the corner my first choice and then my final choice.
That's a good technique.
In the square. I took number two because she answered my question about what the general ailment was, and I was kind of tired off number three because in all the years I've known about analysis and psychotherapy, I've never known anybody to graduate and just leave.
Okay.
Right.
Kitty.
Goodness, what a terrible indictment.
Yeah.
It's anybody want to answer it?
I voted for number one. I liked what she said. I think she called her patients clients. And I think that's sensible because she's not a doctor. And it is a therapy course. And also she said they are often involved in court cases.
Gene Rayburn.
I have had the good fortune to be connected with the show on a network that has had the highest rating in daytime television for a number of years now, but running us a very close second are soap operas.
Yeah.
And now I know why.
No therapeutic help on your
Right.
show. Actually, if you watch that gang on Match Game, there's a lot of therapeutic help, if not present necessary. Peggy.
Well, you know, as I looked at all three of them, I thought one looked like a shoulder I'd lean on if I felt badly, and that's number one's.
Okay. The votes are all in and leaning heavily toward your left as you look at them. Panel, the votes are in, and it's time to find out which of these three ladies is the real Janet Falk Kessler. Now, who better to pick out the real Janet Falk Kessler than her partner in this innovative endeavor, fellow occupational therapist Catherine Froschauer. Catherine, if you would. No.
Oh, she's
Perhaps
a good
there.
Oh, it's number
And look
one.
at that.
No.
No, it's back there.
No.
That's the longest jump. There we are.
And I should have spotted them because I'm sorry.
We'll be back with you. I have a question in a moment. But first, I want to find out about the imposters. Number two, tell us about yourself and what you do, please.
My name is Wendy Gartner, and I sell cars for Porsche Audi Manhattan.
Thank you, Wendy. And number three, if you would.
My name is Linda Wansel, and I'm an illustration student at Parsons School of Design.
Okay. Ms. Kessler, what other kind of work do you do other than this?
Well, actually, we use soap operas as the least part of our work, and primarily what we are involved in is helping people find out what their strengths are. And what we've set up is a very special program in helping people with their work skills. And that's what we spend most of our time
So
doing.
soap opera is not an integral part of it. It's just one of the things you take advantage of to help you in your work.
Yeah.
We thank you both very much. And imposters for being with us on the telephone. Thank you, Our next guest is a remarkable mountain climber, and the word remarkable, when you think of it, is hardly the word for it. We'll get to that whole story in just these 2 minutes.
11500.
Okay, as promised now, panel, let us meet an utterly fantastic mountain climber.
Number one, what is your name, please?
My name is Hulda Crooks.
Number two.
My name is Hulda Crooks.
Number three.
My name is Hulda Crooks.
Okay, now if you listen carefully to Hulda Crooks' climb to the top. I, Hulda Crooks, am a mountain climber. Recently, I scaled Mount Whitney, the highest peak in the continental United States. Not only that, from 1962 to the present, I've climbed the 14,495-foot mountain every single year with only one exception. On a lesser scale, I've hiked to the summit of California's 11,500-foot Mount San Gorgonio on 25 separate occasions. Hiking is one of my favorite ways of finding joy and happiness. When still in my 70s, I used to participate in 80 and 90-mile backpack trips, and I run too. In fact, every morning before breakfast, I get out and run 1 mile. That's not bad for someone who, on her next birthday, will be 81 years young. Signed, Hulda Crooks. I do too. Hulda Crooks, whichever lady you are, you put me to shame. I imagine you put us all to shame. Kitty, would you like to begin?
Hulda Crooks, I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's just wonderful. Number three, San Gorgonio has been in the news fairly recently. Can you tell me why? Number three.
No, I can't.
Can you, number one?
No, I can't.
Number two, where do you run a mile every morning?
Just down the road from
No, number two.
Oh, whenever I have a chance to run.
But where?
Oh, uphill or downhill. I live in an area that is mountain. Right now, I am living on Mountain Top Road.
Where's that?
In New Jersey.
Oh, I see.
I'm staying here in the...
And number three, where do you live?
I live in Loma Linda, California, in Southern California.
Uh-huh. And number one, how long does it take you to get to the top?
Usually done in 2 days. One night in 2 days you rest.
Uh-huh. And number two, where do you rest at night?
I just have trouble climbing from 55th to 56th
sorry,
Street.
I'm sorry, I didn't...
You knew me, you'd know why.
Ring the bell so you don't have to answer.
No, you needn't answer that now. Gene Rayburn, you do have to ask some questions, though.
Listen, if you want to answer, my dear, you go ahead and answer.
It depends on where I feel that I need to rest. Usually I am with several others, and we sort of plan a mutual rest area.
Thank you. I forgot the question. Number 3, when you climbed Mount Whitney, how many times? Number 3?
15.
And do you take the same route each time you climb?
No.
You go a different route?
Sometimes.
Yeah. Number 1, may I ask what your resting pulse rate is?
Pulse rate?
Yeah, what is your pulse?
I don't know because I never take my pulse.
Number 2, what is your pulse rate?
I never bother with mine, but I do have physical examinations every 6 months.
Does the doctor ever tell you what your pulse is?
Yes, sir. He said it is very normal for a person of my age.
Yes. Oh, you evasive rascal, you.
A little bit of climbing and a little bit of evading. Okay. Peggy, you got it here.
Yeah, I don't know my pulse rate. It's not. I don't think people know their pulse rate.
Plaza 78300, I thought.
Number 3. In which state is Mount Whitney?
In California.
Thank you. And number 1, what season do you climb Mount Whitney in?
Between July the 15th and September the 15th.
Thank you. Now, number 3, do you use ropes and pitons and everything when you climb Mount Whitney?
No.
Oh, but number 2, you do have to take your food up with you, don't you, and drink?
Yes.
And do you do it on like do you backpack up there?
If I am taking a short trip, or that is over a weekend trip or so, I take approximately 24 pounds. And if I take a longer trip, it is usually over 30 pounds.
Oh, goodness. Now, number 2, when did you get started with this mad pursuit?
Well,
In 1913.
1913 was your answer there. We just got it in under the wire. Nipsey, you got to end it up.
Number 1, what is a piton?
A piton is a stake, a wooden, an iron spike that you put into the rock or cleft or something.
I see. Number 3, what kind of footgear do you wear when you're doing this climbing?
I don't wear regular boots. I wear Oxfords with a thick sole.
I see. Number 1, do you employ any of the normal techniques that we associate with mountain climbing, like that is pickaxing and hoisting each other?
You mean rappelling?
Beg pardon?
You mean rappelling?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the term for climbing with 2 ropes.
Yes.
And no, this is trail climbing. Rappelling is only done on the eastern side of the slope.
I see. Number 2, is the descent more difficult than the ascent of a mountain?
Usually it is connected with a little more danger. Yes. It is easier to climb up than it is to go down.
Really? Okay, now it's time, panel, to you to do your voting without any consultation, as is usual. So if you would, panel, get your pens and cards and mark your ballots for number 1, or number 2, or number 3. Yes, very interesting, and it's a tough one. Okay, Kitty, you got it marked, because we're gonna begin with you this time.
Yes, well, I find it very difficult. They were all extraordinarily good, and easily any one of the 3 could have been the mountain climber, and they're a lesson to us all. I voted for number 3 because Mount San Gorgonio is near Palm Springs, and it is indeed in Southern California, and 3 said she lived in Southern California, so I voted for 3.
Got one in there for number 3. What are you gonna do, Gene Rayburn?
Well, I tell you, I asked number 2, 1 and 2 about their pulse rates and got 0 response, so I have to vote for number 3 for that reason, because anyone who's climbed Mount Whitney that many times would know that it's so good for the cardiovascular system that her pulse rate would be lower than normal, and probably would be aware of that, and that's why I voted for number 3.
Got 2 number 3s. Hey, are we getting a trend? Peggy Cass will let us know.
Well, I voted for the siren from Loma Linda, number 3.
What do you know about that? We are all leaning very heavily toward the eastern slope. Nipsey?
Well, I discounted number 2. She volunteered a little bit too much information. She actually answered questions that weren't even asked of her, and I discounted number 1 because there's no way that woman can be 80 years old. I went to number 3 because she seems to have the calm confidence of someone who does it and not talks about it.
By golly, that's a landslide. Or an avalanche, however you want. The panel, the votes are all in, and now it's time to find out which of these 3 ladies is the real Hulda Crooks. By way of identifying the real Hulda Crooks, I'd like you first to look at a couple of pictures, if you would. Pictures that were taken of her atop Mount Whitney. Now, here is the first one. Just look over there. There you are. Now, if you have any doubt, this close-up should do it. There you are. Miss Crooks, if you would. There you go. There you are. That was good. Hey, I don't know. Panel, I don't know if you all noticed that, but number 2 was so convincing, she even convinced herself. She stood up at the end. Did you notice that? Very good job. Listen, the imposters were marvelous, number 1 and number 2. Number 1, tell us about yourself and what you do.
Well, I lived in California for many, many years, but currently I live in New Jersey, and I'm just a housewife now.
Thank you for being with us. And number 2, I don't care what your pulse rate is. I want to hear about you personally. Who are you and what do you do?
I am Wisconsin's VFW chairman for the developmentally disabled. I take care of about 189,000 in Wisconsin centers, in nursing homes, and in daycare centers.
Well, good for you, number 2, and thank you. Miss Crooks, before you go, it's nice climbing mountains, which you do and you do well. Are you active in anything else?
I am still a research assistant at the Loma Linda University School of Health. I work practically full-time as a volunteer.
You are remarkable. You're all remarkable. Thank you, all the crooks and imposters, for playing and tell the truth.
Check.
Those ladies have all had very interesting and full lives. Actually, numbers 1 and number 2, our 2 imposters, told us what they did, and I was so intrigued listening. I heard their whole story. I never did find out who they were. So you might be interested if you ever want to hire them give them a job on a panel. Number 1 was Mickey Forner, and number 2 was Joanna Knock. We just thought you'd like to know that. I know we'd like to know. Hey, panel, thank you all very kindly. Thank you. We will see you here tomorrow with the same hickey, I guess.
Yes. Oh, we'll be here.
Number 3 is Mitzi Russell. Number 4, Gene Raymond. Goodbye.
In addition to the cash awards, our first team of challenges will receive Sarah Coventry, the exclusive fashion jewelry that you can buy from a friend. Sarah Coventry, the jewelry with know-how. Our second team will receive Turtle Wax, the world's largest selling liquid car wax. Cleans, polishes, protects in one easy operation. Turtle Wax with the hard shell finish. This is Bill Wendell speaking for To Tell the Truth, a Mark Goodson, Bill Todman production.
Don't touch that remote. There's another episode of To Tell the Truth, this time with Gary Moore, heading your way here on Game Show Network.
This is KHJ-TV Channel 9, Los Angeles.